Discover the secrets to rapid skill mastery with ultralearning techniques. Imagine this: you're sitting in a quiet cafe, sipping your coffee, and watching someone across the room intensely absorbed in their laptop. Maybe they're coding, sketching a complex design, or learning a new language. You wonder, how are they so focused? How do they master something so quickly while I struggle to even start? Let me tell you a story. There's a man named Scott Young who decided to take the entire MIT computer science curriculum. Sounds like a typical journey, right? Except he did it in just 1 year, without ever stepping foot on campus. He didn't have a professor guiding him or classmates to lean on. Instead, he harnessed something called ultralearning, a highly focused and intense form of self-directed learning. And what he discovered isn't just a method. It's a secret weapon for anyone who's tired of being stuck in mediocrity. But let's not stop there. Let's go deeper into this philosophy. I want to share with you not only the secrets of ultralearning, but also the wisdom behind why it works. Together, we'll uncover practical techniques you can use to rapidly master any skill and explore the profound psychological shifts required to make it happen. Before we dive in, let me ask you, what's stopping you from becoming extraordinary at something you care about? Is it time, fear, or is it just that you've never truly committed? Here's the truth. Mastering skills isn't reserved for geniuses or the highly disciplined. It's a process anyone can learn, but only if they're willing to challenge themselves. So, let's embark on this journey. The first secret of ultralearning is simple but often ignored. Clarity is your compass. Think about the last time you tried to learn something new. Did you have a clear goal in mind? Or were you just dabbling, hoping to get better? Clarity doesn't just guide your actions, it eliminates distractions. Scott Young didn't aim to learn computer science. He aimed to pass every single MIT course, mastering each concept as deeply as the students who sat in those classrooms. Why does this matter? The human brain craves specificity. Vague goals like, I want to play the guitar, or I want to improve my public speaking, don't give your brain a target to lock onto. Now, imagine instead saying, I want to perform John Mayer's Gravity perfectly by next month, or I will deliver a 10-minute speech at my company's town hall in 3 weeks. Which version feels more achievable? Which version excites you? And here's the kicker. Clarity isn't just about the outcome. It's about the process. Ultralearners know that every skill is a collection of subskills. You don't learn guitar. You learn chords, fingerpicking, strumming patterns, and scales. By breaking down a skill into its smallest components, you eliminate overwhelm and create a map for progress. So let me ask you again, what's the one skill you've been dying to master? And what's stopping you from defining it clearly? Once clarity is in place, we move to the next cornerstone of ultralearning: intense, deliberate focus. Picture this: you sit down to work on your skill, and your phone buzzes. A quick glance turns into a scroll, and before you know it, 20 minutes are gone. Sound familiar? The modern world is designed to fracture our attention. Yet, every second you spend distracted is a second stolen from your mastery. Cal Newport, another advocate of deep work, puts it best: to produce at your peak level, you need to work for extended periods with full concentration on a single task free from distraction. Ultralearners take this to heart. They create environments that force focus. For Scott Young, this meant shutting himself away from social media, friends, and anything that didn't contribute to his goal. For you, it might mean setting a timer for 25 minutes and working like your life depends on it, or creating a workspace that screams, "No interruptions allowed." But here's the deeper insight. Focus isn't just a state, it's a skill, and like any skill, can be trained. Start small. Commit to 5 minutes of undistracted work and build from there. Over time, your ability to sustain focus will grow, and so will your results. Now, here's a question to challenge you. Are you willing to make sacrifices for focus? To turn off notifications, say no to distractions, and dedicate yourself fully? If not, why? Clarity and focus set the stage. But the real magic of ultralearning lies in its third principle, directness. When most people want to learn a skill, they start safe. They read books, watch tutorials, or attend lectures. But here's the harsh truth. Consuming isn't learning. If you want to master a skill, you have to do the thing. Want to learn public speaking? Start giving speeches, even if they're terrible at first. Want to code? Write messy, buggy programs and debug them until they work. Want to paint? Pick up a brush and get your hands dirty. Ultralearners bypass the comfort zone of theory and dive headfirst into practice. Why? Because skills are context-dependent. You don't truly learn guitar until you've played in front of people. You don't master a language until you've had messy, awkward conversations with native speakers. Every moment of real-world practice embeds that skill deeper into your brain, creating neural pathways that no amount of theory can replicate. But there's a catch. Directness is scary. It exposes your flaws and forces you to confront your incompetence. Yet, it's also liberating. When you embrace directness, you stop worrying about being perfect and start focusing on progress. And that's where the magic happens. Let me pause here to ask, what would it take for you to stop hiding in theory and start practicing boldly? What's the worst that could happen? As we wrap up this first part, I want you to reflect on one thing. Mastery isn't an accident. It's a choice. Every day, you're presented with the opportunity to learn, grow, and transform. But it's up to you to seize that opportunity. Will you let excuses, distractions, or fear hold you back? Or will you embrace the challenge and take the first step? Failing forward, why the path to mastery is paved with mistakes. Let me begin with a story. Imagine a young, ambitious artist named Hiro. He dreams of becoming a master painter but struggles with self-doubt. One day, his mentor gives him a peculiar challenge. Create 100 terrible paintings. Not masterpieces. Not passable works, terrible ones. Confused but obedient, Hiro starts. The first painting is awkward, clumsy, embarrassing. So is the second. But by the 20th, something shifts. His strokes become more confident. By the 50th, his color choices begin to shine. And by the 100th, Hiro isn't just better, he's transformed. The lesson? Mastery begins where perfectionism ends. If you're unwilling to make mistakes, you'll never truly grow. And this brings us to one of the most counterintuitive truths of ultralearning. Failure is your greatest ally. But let's not romanticize failure. It's uncomfortable, sometimes humiliating, and always hard to embrace. However, it's also the fastest way to learn. Think about it. When you succeed, you celebrate and move on. But when you fail, you pause, reflect, and adapt. Failure forces you to confront your blind spots, refine your strategies, and grow stronger. Let me ask you, when was the last time you allowed yourself to fail spectacularly? Have you been too cautious, too afraid to take risks? What could you achieve if you embraced failure as a teacher instead of a threat? One of the cornerstones of ultralearning is experimentation. Unlike traditional learners, who stick to predefined paths, ultralearners actively test, tweak, and explore. Why? Because every skill has nuances, and the only way to uncover them is through trial and error. Take the story of Benjamin Franklin. As a young man, Franklin wanted to master the art of persuasive writing. But instead of reading endless books on rhetoric, he devised his own experiment. He would take essays from his favorite authors, strip them down to key points, and rewrite them in his own words. Then he'd compare his version to the original, analyzing every flaw and strength. This iterative process wasn't perfect, it was messy, full of mistakes, but it worked. Franklin didn't just become a decent writer, he became one of history's most celebrated communicators. Now think about your own learning journey. Have you been following someone else's script, waiting for a perfect formula? Or are you willing to experiment, fail, and discover what works for you? Here's a challenge. Take one skill you're learning and try something unconventional. Break the rules. See what happens. The next principle ties closely to experimentation. Feedback. If experimentation is the engine of ultralearning, feedback is the fuel. Without it, you're driving blind. Yet, many of us avoid feedback because it feels like judgment. We fear being told we're not good enough. But here's the twist. Feedback isn't about you. It's about the work. The moment you detach your ego from your efforts, feedback becomes a gift, not a threat. Take, for example, the case of elite athletes. Why do they improve so quickly? Because every move they make is scrutinized by coaches, teammates, and even themselves. They welcome criticism because they know it's the fastest way to grow. Ultralearners adopt the same mindset. They seek out mentors, peers, and even strangers who can point out flaws they can't see on their own. Here's a practical tip. Don't just accept feedback. Demand it. Find someone who's better than you at the skill you're learning and ask for their honest opinion. And when they give it, don't defend yourself or explain away your mistakes. Just listen, reflect, and act. And here's a question for you. How do you handle feedback? Do you welcome it with open arms? Or do you shy away from it? What would change if you saw criticism as a tool for growth rather than a verdict on your worth? Now, let's talk about the emotional side of failure and feedback. Discomfort. Ultralearning isn't easy. It's not supposed to be. The whole point is to push yourself beyond your current limits. And that means stepping into discomfort again and again. There's a psychological concept called the zone of proximal development. It's the sweet spot where a task is challenging enough to stretch you but not so hard that it's overwhelming. Ultralearners live in this zone. They don't waste time on tasks they've already mastered, but they also don't set goals so ambitious they're doomed to fail. Instead, they constantly adjust, keeping themselves on the edge of their abilities. But here's the thing about discomfort. It's not just external, it's internal. It's the voice in your head that says, "You're not good enough. You'll never get this." The greatest ultralearners aren't just skilled, they're resilient. They learn to silence self-doubt, not by ignoring it, but by confronting it head-on. So let me ask you, what's your relationship with discomfort? Do you avoid it? Or do you see it as a sign that you're growing? What would happen if you leaned into discomfort instead of running from it? To close this part, let's return to Hiro, the artist. By the time he completed his 100th painting, he realized something profound. Mastery isn't about the destination. It's about the process. Each terrible painting wasn't a failure. It was a step forward. And the same is true for you. Every mistake, every setback, every piece of honest feedback is bringing you closer to your goal. The ripple effect, how skill mastery unlocks endless possibilities. Imagine a single drop of water hitting the surface of a calm lake. The ripple starts small, but it expands outward, touching areas far beyond its point of origin. This is the essence of skill mastery. What begins as a seemingly isolated effort, a new language, a musical instrument, coding, or even cooking, sets off a chain reaction that transforms not just your abilities but your confidence, mindset, and ultimately, your life. To understand this, let's revisit the story of Scott Young. By mastering the MIT curriculum in a year, Scott didn't just become proficient in computer science. He unlocked a new sense of self. Suddenly, the barriers that once seemed insurmountable, like learning another language or starting a business, felt conquerable. Why? Because mastery breeds momentum. Once you've proven to yourself that you can tackle one Everest, every mountain seems climbable. But here's the deeper question. How do you sustain this momentum? How do you ensure that your ripple grows rather than fizzles out? Let's start with systems. The best ultralearners don't rely on motivation. They rely on structure. They know that enthusiasm is fleeting, but systems are enduring. Think about it. When was the last time you started something with excitement only to lose steam a week later? It wasn't because you lacked talent or discipline. It was because you didn't have a system to carry you through the inevitable dips in energy. A system isn't just a schedule or a checklist. It's a deliberate design for success. The setting aside 30 minutes every morning to practice. no matter how you feel. It's tracking your progress so you can see tangible growth. It's building habits that make learning automatic rather than optional. Systems remove the guesswork and replace it with consistency. And consistency is where transformation happens. Let me ask you, what systems have you built for your own growth? Are they strong enough to sustain you when motivation fades? If not, how can you create systems that make mastery inevitable? Now let's talk about curiosity, the hidden driver of ultralearning. Curiosity is what separates those who learn for the sake of achievement from those who learn for the love of discovery. When you approach a skill with curiosity, you stop seeing mistakes as failures and start seeing them as opportunities to explore. You begin asking questions like, why did this approach fail? Or what happens if I try something completely different? One of the most inspiring examples of curiosity in action is Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist. Feynman wasn't content to just know the answers. He wanted to understand the why behind everything. His relentless curiosity led him to experiment, tinker, and even break down complex concepts into simple, teachable ideas. This Feynman technique became one of the most powerful tools in education, and it's a direct product of his insatiable curiosity. But here's the thing, curiosity isn't just a mindset, it's a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And as it grows, it doesn't just enhance your learning, it transforms your perspective. Suddenly, the world becomes a playground of possibilities, filled with questions waiting to be answered. Let me challenge you. When was the last time you let curiosity guide your actions? Are you willing to ask questions, even if they lead you down an unexpected path? Now we come to the ripple itself, the broader impact of mastering a skill. At first glance, skill mastery seems like a personal journey. You learn something for yourself, right? But the truth is, your mastery has a profound effect on the people around you. Think about it. When you see someone who's deeply skilled at what they do, doesn't it inspire you? Whether it's a musician, an athlete, or a teacher, their mastery reminds you of what's possible. And as you master your own skills, you become that inspiration for others. But it doesn't stop there. Mastery also transforms how you approach challenges in every area of your life. Let's say you've mastered a musical instrument. That discipline, patience, and creativity spill over into your work, relationships, and problem-solving abilities. Or imagine you've mastered public speaking. That confidence and clarity of thought begin to influence how you communicate in everyday conversations. This is the ripple effect. Mastery isn't confined to a single domain. It spreads into everything you do. So here's a final question for you. What kind of ripple do you want to create in your life? How will your mastery impact not just you, but the world around you? As we close, I want to leave you with one final thought. The journey to mastery is infinite. No matter how skilled you become, there's always more to learn, more to discover, more to explore. But that's not a reason to feel overwhelmed, it's a reason to feel excited. Every skill you master is a gateway to new possibilities, new challenges, and new adventures. And so, the question isn't whether you'll take this journey, it's how far you're willing to go. Will you settle for mediocrity? Or will you commit to mastery? Will you let the ripple fade? Or will you make it grow? The choice is yours. Let the journey begin.